Good morning, everybody. How are y'all? Good. Everybody awake? Excellent. All right, we're going to start off. I'm going to ask some loaded questions. That way we can all kind of participate a little bit. So, how many people in here are Bitcoiners? All right. How many of y'all are not? Because I was one of those for a long daggum time, and I didn't know what in the hell these people are talking about. So one of the simple terms for those of y'all like me who wasn't, fiat is what Bitcoiners address as cash or credit card check, U.S. monetary system, right? How many of y'all are actually producers, own cattle, a rancher, a farmer, or have the initiative that you want to get into it? Quite a few of us in here. I like it. Good. How many of y'all don't care? You're just a big fan of connoisseur of beef. That's what I'm talking about. Excellent. Good. Well, the cool thing is everything I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to kind of jump all sides of the ledger. I'm going to talk to those who want to be a producer. I'm going to talk to those of y'all who don't really care about that part. You just want to eat a daggum good steak and know that you feel, you're going to feel healthy. You're going to taste the difference in that profile. A little bit at the end, I'm even going to let my chef and our team come in and talk a little bit about cuts of meat. One of the cool things tonight when we have the dinner, I do have a few things I need to know. One, I want you to have a good time. I don't want this to be some boring promo where I sit up here and at the end you're like, thank God I had to go to the bathroom, I got to pee, I need something to drink. So that's one. If you're getting bored, you better let me know. And two, when y'all leave here tonight, if you're driving home, you're probably going to have to fight to keep one eye open because we want you to leave comatose. I want you to be so daggum full you can't hardly see straight. We're going to have some different cuts of meat that maybe you haven't ever tried before. We're going to have some cuts of meat that hopefully you have tried and you really, really like it. But we're going to change things up a little bit. So I'm going to get started I'm sure some of y'all have heard me on podcasts. I've met quite a few of y'all today. I've met several of y'all at different meetups. Tell you a little bit about my story. So the way I got into all this, I grew up in the commercial side of agriculture. For those who don't know what in the world I'm talking about, I was the guy that raised cattle. I ended up either selling to a feed yard, selling to someone that's going to turn them out on wheat. In the end, they're doing the same thing. They're going to grow them, they're going to take them to the yard, and the corporate packer is going to give them X amount of money. Or for those of y'all who just got started, maybe let's say, you have 10 cows, you raise your calves, and your only outlet is to go to the local auction. I was the guy that came in and bought your calves, and I would grow them, and inevitably the circle continues. So for years, I have heard about, man, I busted my butt, I've done all this work, and guess what? As a rancher, a farmer, I'm making no money. Well, I got into agriculture because it was a lifestyle choice for me. It was a way of life. I love the Western values. I love being able to wake up and get on a horse. But let me tell you, folks, time doesn't really always permit that. It's not this romantic fantasy that, if y'all watch Yellowstone, what that looks like is a hell of a lot different. It's a lot more work. There are days I wish I could get on a horse. I jump a four-wheeler because it's faster. There are days that I wish I was, getting to ride through pastures and check cattle. Instead, I'm fixing fence. I'm fixing water lines. It is a lot of work, but it's one that I love and I cherish and I'm very passionate about. So as a young guy going through college, I realized, holy crap, I don't have a whole lot of money. I didn't inherit generational wealth or land. If I want to do this, I got to figure out how to make it all work. Hence, that's how I kind of got into banking. I have 2 degrees from Texas Tech, if any of y'all from Red Raider country, guns up. And they gave me a hell of a foundation. They taught me a whole lot about agriculture, and I had to figure out how to fund this. So I got into banking because what I realized is, I wanted to dabble in the industry. So how could I go help those that wanted to get into agriculture? Well, it's real simple. Let me figure out a way I can get them access to money. And I was blessed. I had a great upbringing in the industry in banking, some great mentors. And then I went to work for an awesome bank in Central Texas. And I brag on them because what's really cool, the bank I work for, I'm a Frontier Bank of Texas. We're a true community bank. We pour our cash back into our communities. We spend a ton of our money doing that. But we also cater to agriculture. And more than anything, they've been super supportive of everything I've done in agriculture. And so I've been very blessed there. And because of that, I actually met my business partner in my processing plant. I'll talk about that here in just a little bit. So I get going into banking. I finally start utilizing my capital, and I start my cattle operation about 10 years ago. I'd always been working for Dad, but hell, I didn't want Dad to get all the money, right? I had to do it all on my own, do it the hard way. I had to learn myself because my dad didn't know what he was talking about. Go figure. A lot of things in life, had I listened, I would have done a lot of things smarter. And so I'm sitting here, and my operation's going. I'm finally starting to kind of make some money, but I'm not making a whole lot. And I'm like, this really sucks, because the average age of a farmer and rancher, let's address that one. How many of y'all wonder why some people call them farmers, some people call them ranchers, right? Historically, we look at farmers as the guys that go out and do row crop farming. Historically, the guys that raise cattle are going to be your ranchers. Well, part of learning all of this is I realized that to be a better rancher, this industry is going to have to shift. We're no longer going to focus on how much per calf can I make. Instead, I have to start looking at how much per acre can I make. So it actually turns me into a farmer. How much can I make that grass generate my profit on the back end, and then I can go do all the fun ranching stuff. So I had to change my mindset with that. Fast forward all of this, I'm sitting in my office, a farmer comes up to me and says, Cole, I need some financial advice. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll see what I can do to help you there. Can you come to a meeting with me? I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. So I go sit with him. He raised all natural vegetables. I'm going to sit down. I like to be real casual a little bit. And I'm sitting in this meeting, and I'm listening to what this vendor is going to pay him to grow all these crops. And I'm like, all right, here's a market that I can have access to. This makes sense. Pretty good profit. I don't know nothing about farming, y'all. I know enough about grass. I know the traditional method of fertilizer and what that costs. But so we leave the meeting. I'm asking him questions like, okay, tell me your input costs. How much is it going to make to grow this ear of corn or this head of lettuce, this particular squash? The only part I didn't know is Central Texas is pretty daggum hard to farm for those of y'all that aren't from here. It's pretty rough. We have a wonderful climate. In the summer, you're going to have 105 degrees for at least 60 days. Great place to live. So I went back to that same company and I said, hey, who are y'all purveying your beef from? And of course, they were kind of telling me, and it's funny because they don't know, they're a corporate outlet. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. So I give them a proposition, and because they were getting railroaded on the amount of money they were paying for beef that was nowhere near that quality. And I'm like, I can beat that price. I can do it cheaper, but I can give you a better product on top of that. And so that's how I got started. And then COVID hit. So as I'm dabbling, starting this direct to consumer, I'm selling to a third party vendor, right? They're taking my stuff and they're going to make more money off of it. I'm still playing in the commercial side of the ledger because I'm trying to keep all of this in balance. How do I keep this moving? How do I grow to volume? How do I grow to scale? For those who said you're producers, how many of y'all actually run volume? Or let me ask this question. How many of y'all have 20 head of cattle or less? Or 20 head of your animals or less? All right, so you'll understand these challenges. How do you feed? Typically, you're going to go to a feed store and you're going to buy some supplements. You're going to buy cake for your cows. Your price is nowhere near the same as the guy that's got 200. So I was trying to figure out, how do I blend all these worlds together? COVID hit. Terrible situation, but perfect time as a producer. Because now, as grocery stores are limited on supply, consumers are kind of like wanting to figure out, how in the world do I get meat? H-E-B didn't grow it today. Yeah, I know. Let me tell you the story about that. So what I started realizing is people were thirsting for knowledge. They're thirsting for education because they have no daggum clue. I went to the grocery store and I saw a kid like asking his mom, did the cow grow the eggs? I'm like, oh God, we're really steering away from agriculture. No, that was the rooster in the back. I caught that joke too. All right, it was corny, I know. All right, so I get going with COVID. My business starts to grow. And this is just by word of mouth, telling folks, hey, I'll sell you a half side of beef. I'll sell a quarter. I'll sell a whole. Well, my next challenge came up. I was only killing like 1 or 2 animals a month. Now I'm needing to bump up to like 2 or 3 a week. Well, for those of y'all that are doing door to door, you'll realize how many of y'all got to wait 12 months for a kill spot? It sucked. Well, how do I control a business model when that keeps growing? Well, then I looked up and it just kept exponentially growing and exponentially growing. So I'm juggling between 3 processors. I'm driving about 300 miles a week in a full circle, trying to figure out how in the world can I keep growing this and keep getting them harvested, and how do I have consistencies with my yields? All this affects that dollar. So I decided I need to get fully integrate this. I've got to figure out how to take it another step. And I was blessed because of banking. I knew a gentleman, 2 Bar C Ranch in Luling, Texas, a man named Clyde Summerlotti. He's an older gentleman full of knowledge. And I said, hey, why don't we partner up? We should build a processing plant because Central Texas is starving for this. But I don't want to just build. And the cool thing is when Clyde builds something, he don't build anything small. He goes extravagant. And he goes extravagant not because it's a bragging right. He goes extravagant because he sees vision. He sees scale. And he and I both agreed on this. So you are going to get the luxury, hopefully today, to meet a guy named Robert Judson. And Robert actually came in. He designs processing plants. And as we're sitting talking to him, you know, we were going to build like a 5,000 square foot plant. What does that look like? Well, it means we can probably kill 20, 30, maybe 40 head a week if we're lucky. We're going to be back in the same problem. We'll build a customer base, and you're going to have 2, and this person's going to have 2, but before long, we're going to have 40, and quite frankly, as I tell you about our business, it wouldn't work. So we decided to step it up a little more and a little more. So we built about a 19,000 square foot facility where we can kill up, we're shooting for 200, we may even move more than that per week. So with that, we're now going to be able to go to producers and say, we have a home for you to be able to bring your animal, whether it's beef, swine, lambs, goats, we can harvest it all. And furthermore, for those who are on the paleo kick, we're going to have a whole separate side of the facility to do wild game and deer, pigs, the whole 9 yards. So we built this up to scale because we wanted to offer this to the community. We know there's a need. We know that we want a high-end facility to where you feel comfortable with your product. Well, there's labor problems. So with that, we decided to invest in a lot more equipment than we wanted to, but we wanted to be able to have the utmost packaging. So we're going with roll stock machinery, double chambers. We're going with conveyor systems because labor's hard as hell to find right now. How many of y'all own businesses? How many of y'all can find people to work? You were very fortunate, sir. Very true, very true. And so we wanted to avoid that. We're going to employ tons of people. Don't get me wrong. We're going to probably have 20, 25 full-time laborers. But what happens when the guy drinks too much tonight and he don't show up Monday morning? I want to be able to still function. We got to provide that product. So I fully integrated from raising that calf from day one to taking him, finishing him, harvesting him. And now, because of COVID, I realized the need for consumers to skip that grocery store. We're going to go door to door. I built an e-commerce platform, knccattle.com. Started small. We're killing a couple head. Then those who are in Central Texas, we all know what Snowmageddon was last year. God forbid the state of Texas slowed down or shut down for a whole damn week because we got 3, 4, 5 inches of snow, and you can't function when that happens in Texas, except in the Panhandle, and they laugh at us because they never stop. Snowmageddon hit, and it gave me the chance. I moved more meat than I'd ever moved. I drove straight to the consumers. We put chains on all my dualies. We had freaking 55-gallon drums full of water to ice up the back end of our truck so we're not sliding, and we were going straight to people all week long, nonstop. We ran 14-hour days delivering meat. Then we started getting recognition. People started acknowledging and seeing like, hey, this is different. On top of that, the taste profile when you buy directly from a ranch is completely different. I'm going to talk a little bit about the profiles of meat and the different programs towards the end, but regardless, the difference is being able to age your beef, being able to raise the beef and control what goes into them. Consumers can taste the difference. For those of y'all that have tasted our beef, hopefully tonight, if you haven't, you're going to get to, it is different. It's richer. But if I'm doing this, there's a whole lot of other people that would love to jump on board. We want to create a system through the Beef Initiative where you can follow these same protocols. And let's say, you don't have the time to go out and market. Have any of y'all done the farmers markets or gone to farmers markets? That's the grassroots way of getting started. The problem is the ROI sucks. You sit there all day, you sell some product, you get to meet a lot of cool people, but you don't make any money. And at the end of the day, this is still a business. And so I continued to grow it, and we went from 2. I've partnered with lots of folks. Now we're killing 15 to 20 head per week. And to be able to continue to grow to scale, you have to make sure you utilize your grasses. So, I'm working with real estate developers in Austin. They go buy a tract of land. Hey, guess what? It's going to take them 18 months to get permitted, because to do anything in the city of Austin, it takes 18 months. And so we'll go harvest hay on these pastures. Keeps their ag exemption. It's a win-win for them. It's a benefit for me. I can utilize the forage and now have a feed source. For those that are buying, and just investing in land because they see all the growth in the Central Texas area, if they have good fences, now I'll go turn cattle out. Bam, got their ag exemption, win-win for us. It's not quite that easy. I make it sound real simple. It's been really freaking hard, but being in the banking industry gives me an open exposure to those type of folks. So I've tried to utilize and leverage every single aspect that I can to grow. Because, my focus is in Texas. I want to stay in Texas, raise beef in Texas, and really cater to Texas. We have shipped to 48 states across the U.S., but my expertise is not going to California. For those who are producing, as you get into this, I will tell you, it is a real challenge with shipping. It sucks. They lose a lot of packages. You can pay for the insurance, and UPS, FedEx, they find a way not to pay you. It is a real challenge. So I'm kind of bringing that and reining that back in and focusing right here in Texas. So I want to go over a few things. For those who are just beef connoisseurs, and you want to understand why I'm this crazy idiot that wants to work all the time, raise cattle, distribute it, harvest it. Well, I wrote my numbers down because I can't do math as I talk very well. All right, so in today's market, simple math, the corporate packers are making about $900 per head, whereas the producer, after you figure, when I say carry cost, so when you have a group of cows, you have to focus feed towards that mother cow. And even though she gives you an offspring, you still have an operating and carry cost for the cow to carry the lifespan of the calf. So after you figure the true carry cost of the cow, let's figure it $350. The average producer would make $600 per animal today. And that means if they took their cow to auction, their calf weighs 500 pounds, you get paid $1.80, which is really good. Most people won't get that, but perfect scenario, they'll make $635 per animal. Average herd size in the United States is 15 head. Do the math on that one. It's less than about $13,000. So you work a whole year for $13,000? I don't know anyone there are people in the poverty line that make more money than that. So you've got to grow that to scale, and that's where the problem started. The corporate packer is making more money than the producer is, and the producer's taking all the risk, putting all the labor, and all they're doing is harvesting and cutting our animal. And then they go market, sell it as primals to HEB, right? So furthermore, they're the ones that encouraged us on our protocols. And what I mean by that, you look who owns it, JBS, Monsanto, Cargill. cattlemen, you National Beef, and you see where they're sourcing from, they all still have ties back into, hey, the fertilizers that we use, the pesticides, coincidentally, all the shots that we use, they're targeting and pushing where that comes from. So the beef, why does the taste profile taste different? Well, I'll tell you, I could do a sample today of a ribeye that's, you go buy at H-E-B at your local supermarket. I can put it against mine, and I will say this with complete confidence, you'll pick mine every time. I've done it. I've done it with tons of consumers. The reason is, in my opinion, we don't implant our cattle. What does that do? Implants make them grow faster. Implants make a cow's bone profile accelerate in their growth quicker. But it actually doesn't necessarily mean they're going to convert on grass and on the traditional method of feed faster. I've actually watched all natural cattle perform really, really well. I test it. That's my program. I've watched them manipulate so long. How many of y'all saw during COVID, did your beef get cheaper at the grocery store? Heck no, it got higher. It's one of the first times, Jason and I can laugh on this, that where we could actually go toe-to-toe with our product and pretty much stay right in line against any grocery store. One of the only times a producer can do that. So right now, as the packer continues to shrink down what they're paying us, have you seen beef get cheaper? Not at all. The only place where you've seen it, you might have seen your steaks at the grocery store shrink down. That's only because they're back-ending us right now, and they're killing a lot of cows, mama cows, because we're in a severe drought in several regions of the U.S. So they're driving ground beef cheaper. Oh, crap, but ground beef isn't cheaper. Actually, ground beef right now is accelerating in the grocery store. So it's the perfect storm for those of us that are producers. It is the one time where we have a window we can jump in. For those of us like me, you go, and Jason, you're fighting this too if you're trying to go after wholesale business. So when you buy half a side of beef, how many of y'all have ever bought a quarter, a half, a whole? Anyone? All right, so you probably got that huge lesson that about 50% of it turns to ground beef, because when they bring it to you, you're like, oh crap, what am I going to do with all this ground beef, right? We have the same problem. As you grow to scale, and I'm harvesting 5 and 10, I got to find outlets for all this. Well, the restaurants, coincidentally, don't really care where it comes from. Oh, you can go to ones that put it on their menu, and they tell you how much they're worried about the animal and the producer, and this is locally sourced. But I will tell you, as price changes, so does their loyalty to what their menu says. It doesn't take them very long. When I need to get $4 a pound for ground beef, they're going to go buy a 12-year-old mama cow that was harvested, that has no fat content, but you also have no clue over the life of the animal, what all it's had, what all it's been exposed to, and they're going to pay $2.50, and the taste profile's different. I promise you. What's interesting to me, and I just tested this because I had to, we raised our prices on our ground beef to all our restaurants, and I did it because I was trying to get rid of some. I'm at the point I'm trying to bring things closer to home because the operating cost, fuel's through the roof, all the above. I need to bring it on back to the ranch. Let's just stay 20 minutes around the house or restaurants. I jumped my prices 40 cents. And for the first time I expected to lose at least 6. I didn't lose 1. And I didn't understand why, but now they're getting record sales. It's not that the restaurant industry is healthy right now. Most restaurants are really suffering, but the consumers have noticed the difference in the taste of what their meats are. They love it. And yes, they got to have really good cooks to make it taste well. But at the same time, the beef tastes different. And so I'm passionate, I'm full throttle, wanting to attack and go to our consumers and offer this all across the country. For KNC, we're going to keep our happy butt right here in Texas. For Jason, he's going to take over Colorado. And heck, as close as you are to Utah, heck, you might as well go to kind of your surrounding states. And no different. We want producers in California, Hawaii, New York, Florida. And it's crazy how many emails we get each week from those same folks asking us, hey, can you ship to Florida? Well, yeah, why don't you go to a producer in Florida and make more sense? So I'm really, really excited. I thank y'all for coming today. I'm going to kind of open up a dialogue with y'all because I want to know, for all the people that came today, what is it you want to know? What are questions I can answer from the production side? But before I do that, I do want to address one lingering question that I get over and over and over. Can anyone guess what that would be?
What's the beef initiative?
That is one. I'm going to let Slim answer that one here in a little bit. He can go more into detail on that. What the beef initiative in my mind is, it's a group of consumers and a group of producers that have gotten together. We allow, if you're into Bitcoin, to do transactions through Bitcoin. If that's not your thing and you continue to want to use the US dollar, you can use the US dollar. But we can verify that your cattle have no implants. We can verify how they're raised, where they're raised, and that they were processed locally. You're not using a corporate packer who turned their back on their employees, who, I'm not going into politics, but, you know, whether they required mandates or not, whether they required immunizations or not, we don't care. We're going to use local. So you're keeping all your money in a local community. That's what the beef initiative means to me. Yes, sir.
What's implants?
All right, implants. So for those of us, it was as a producer, we would pull our calves as we're getting ready to wean. And what that means is when we take the calf off the mom, it has a period in which it's going to struggle not being on the mother, right? So during that time, we give them their normal booster shots. So we give them a black leg. I can go into all the protocols with you, but we implant them. Historically, that's what the industry has done. It's a hormone. It's basically a human growth hormone or animal growth hormone. You put into their ear. It helps to grow their bone size and their frame. Helps them convert quicker, faster, and we can grow these monsters in a quicker time. What's interesting for me is I've played both sides of the ledger, so I understand the difference of both. I'm not going to look down on a producer if that's what their outlet is and that's what they need to do, okay. But I'm telling them they can take that back by better utilizing their grass program. They can avoid having to do that. Yes, sir.
You have like FDA inspected meat and you're going local, so don't you run into regulations that are mandated?
Yes. So there's a gray spot in our industry right now to where if you called me and you want to buy a whole, a half, or a quarter, I can go to any backyard guy, let him harvest your beef, and as long as you go there and pick it up, I'm safe. This is really stupid in that I can sell you a half, a quarter, or a whole, but if you want to just buy 5 packs of ground beef from me, now I have to either have a state verification or a USDA verification.
That all adds to the cost, right?
Exactly. So if I could use just a local processor that didn't have to pay for all that, great question, actually. So the average processing cost in Texas, Jason, I'm kind of curious what it looks like in Colorado, because in Texas, the average is about $1 to $1.10. Yeah. And that's for USDA or state stamp.
90 cents for USDA.
Yeah. So what that means, it costs us $800 to $900 to harvest for my size of animal. You know, I harvest my steers around 1,300 pounds live weight. It's roughly $700 to $800. So yeah, there is an added cost associated with it. So it leaves huge cost. It leaves that much margin. So how does that relate to the corporate packers? They can do it for $35 on average. They're not fabricating to the extent that we are. They're cutting the cow into sections. Then they're shipping it to your grocery store, and then the grocery store pays and breaks it down and fabricates it.
Is there room in this industry to come up with a custom certification that's away from the FDA stuff, that's in-house?
Great question. So that is one thing that we are going to try to look at with the beef initiative, is to see if we can get our own label, our own stamp, our own verification that says, yes, by using a local processor, they do follow the safety protocols. But we can verify now that the animals have not been given hormones, that they were raised on this program, this protocol, and the USDA actually does allow specific programs you can build through them. We're just now gently getting started, trying to cross those hurdles to see if we can do a verification.
Then you can get an in-house guy that goes and does it.
Yeah.
The cost way down.
Correct. And so basically our long-term vision is let's say you don't have time to drive to your local rancher this week. I want you to buy from your rancher direct. But our long-term vision is when you go to the grocery store and you're seeing that certified Angus beef, that stamp that's behind it that says it's 51% black and probably doesn't actually have to be Angus at all, you can go buy a label of meat that says Beef Initiative, and hopefully you'll have the brand recognition that you'll understand what that means. Yes, sir.
So, to follow along with that, I saw recently H-E-B has its Texas roots, and it sounds like a low portion grill, but it's like supposedly their local brand or something.
Right.
They're like, you know how like they have their own H-E-B brand, and they always say like, oh, this is local from Texas, but they actually have this roots brand. So,
Yeah.
anything about that?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. So the Roots brand mean, yes, they did buy beef from Texas, and it probably was actually harvested at JBS or one of the other plants in the Panhandle. Yes, it's going to be implanted, and it's going to have the whole 9 yards of what we're trying to do the opposite of. But yes, they are sourcing from a feed yard in Texas. That is correct. Yes, sir.
I live up in northeast Texas, outside of Athens.
Sure.
Did I hear you say that if I purchased land and wanted you to put cattle on it, you would make that arrangement with me?
Yeah, I do a lot of it. I'm doing it right here. Clint, you're from Athens.
Too far from where you are?
For me, yes, it is. I'm actually from Jacksonville originally, but yeah, it's a little too far.
Gun Barrel City. But I
Oh,
asked
okay.
about land. My real question is, for someone who is looking to buy land, what sources do you use to educate yourself on what you're buying and what you should be buying?
Well, you know, what I look at as a producer with the land, I'm looking at it, I treat my business, my cattle business, actually from the real estate side as a whole separate entity. The real estate is an investment. So I want to identify property that in the long run is its highest and best use is hopefully I'm going to make good money off of it. So I want to buy tracts that make sense where growth is pushing in 10 years, not right now, or in 20 years. I want to look at land that has good water sources. I want to look at their soil breakdown so that I understand what I'm getting into. All things you do, you can put a property under contract and go 30 days to do your due diligence, right? But I want to look at things that have good water sources, have trees available because you need shade. Especially for me, I run Angus. It's too daggum hot in Texas. They got to be able to have that access. And you know, I want to look at land that has that. I mean, most all land isn't taken care of the way Jason and I are trying to target, but that has the ability to go in to where we can put good root systems back in, that we can either go in and plant new grasses or have existing native grasses that with our programs and rotational grazing, we'll be able to put the nutrients back in.
How far north are you comfortable?
For me,
It's all shipping, right? I mean, it's all transporting.
right. Pretty much right now, I'm trying to stay like 45 minutes of around or 60 miles of Austin. I'm staying right here in my little circle that I know. Because by the time I go and check cattle, I got to be able to get there quicker.
There's a lot of cattle coming down out by Rockdale and land out
Yep. So one of our big ranches is in Thrall, in between Taylor and Rockdale. So, no, I agree with you. All right, so I said I was going to address the one big question that I get the most. This is one of the funnest ones, and that we get from consumers. Is your beef grass-fed, grain-finished, in a feed yard? I'm going to address this in the most unbiased manner possible. All programs I completely support. As you look at geography of a region, it can impact what you do. So if you're in Central Texas and you're doing 100% grass-fed program right now, I'm going to have to call BS because we've had 0 inches of rain in the last 4 months. The average person does not have the ability, unless they're constantly buying hay right now, to do that. So a lot of consumers don't realize that when you buy grain-fed, what that really means. I'm going to address that too, because there are 2 sides of each program. Most importantly, what I envision is I want to see people utilize and pasture raise their beef. You can finish them in a manner at home as you so choose. For me, I'm focused on making the grass make my money. I'm focused on letting the animal be in a natural, free environment to where they don't have stress. The less stress, the better the yield, the more profit I make, the better the meat tastes to the consumer. I want to know that they can have access to clean water and fresh water at all times. My cattle, I finish on a non-GMO, which is brewer's grain. I work with local breweries. I go pick up all the spent grain that's going to be trashed, and I put it right into my feed. My feed also has some natural vitamins. I take cottonseed, same thing, non-GMO. It's the offset of gin and cotton. It adds roughage into their diet. You know, a lot of folks just think you go pump corn to them, and for those that have a hot button in environmental and are really concerned about the breakdown of where corn comes from and seed oils, you can look at it that way. You can look at it a different direction and say that, corn technically is a grass. The most important thing is the environment in which they're set in. They need to stay on pasture. They will perform. Will they convert as high on feed in an open pasture? The answer absolutely is not. They won't. It takes more time to grow them. If you want the marbling pop, I like that direction. My cattle have performed very well. I can help take product that is trashed and wasted and put it back into my feed source. I can help them utilize that while they're on pasture. If I were in the Midwest, I would have a whole different program because they're, historically get more rain. They have more grasses available. I can leave cattle on longer. You can add supplements into their diet that doesn't affect the nutrition of the animal. So when people are so concerned with grass-fed, let me give you that option too. So grass-fed also, you can change one little thing in my ration and I can certify it grass-fed. I can also put alfalfa instead. So it's a big misconception with consumers. My encouragement to you is go to your rancher and understand what program they follow. And if you're comfortable as a consumer, that should be what matters. What we're trying to do is avoid putting a calf in a confined pen so he can't move and look at dirt the rest of his 90 to final 120 days. That is what we're trying to avoid. That's what I'm trying to avoid. We want them to have a natural environment. That's why the kill plant was so important for me, because now I can take my cattle within 45 minutes, have them sitting at the plant, and actually my partner, his ranch is right there in where we're building our plant in Luling, so it's 10 minutes. I can take them straight to the plant. I can actually decrease my amount of shrink from a producer. That's money lost off of your beef. But I can put them in a lower stress environment, and I can harvest them with less stress, which means they're less prone to be a dark cutter. For those who are just consumers, what does that mean? It means dark cutters happen when they get stressed. Their meat will start getting dark. I can't cut ribeyes off that, because if you see it, you would think I punched the ribeye right in the heart of it, and it looks nasty. I can't use it as a high-end cut. Now it goes to grind. So I focus very heavily on that. But that is the question we get asked the most. I get asked the most. Jason, I'm sure you get asked it all the time. There are very unique ways in which you can raise that animal. Most importantly, it needs to stay in a free environment. Any more questions? Producers, consumers? Yes, sir.
Are you in production over there yet?
No, we're not in production yet. Probably about 45, 60 days out. It has been a very brutal, long process. The USDA, construction, getting subs to show up, that's a challenge these days. So, no, we're not yet. We'll be this summer.
Are you planning to do anything with, once you cut up your, make your cuts, whatever, are you planning to do anything with the rest of the cow or,
Great question.
marrow, bones?
Yes, so I have worked since I started going direct to consumer. Kill plants typically just get rid of all that crap. So I do have contracts for my hides. They're actually going to a company in Texas. With marrow, I'm working with a company right now that's they do a lot of bone broth. I also work with some dog food companies that are going back to a paleo diet for dogs. So now that took care of my organ issue. So, and I also sell a lot of organs to consumers. With that, I also have a contract with a company doing tallow, and they're making natural tallow to which they can cook with. So yes, my plan is to fully honor the entire life of that animal and use the entire carcass. Can't announce yet, I'm still under NDA. Sorry, love to answer your question. Yes. Yes, sir. What's stopping other ranchers from doing what I'm doing? Market access, first and foremost. They don't know how to find that consumer. I mean, I used Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, my team I'll introduce to you, TikTok. We did all of this stuff. We went to farmers markets. We went to gyms. We were targeting any and every avenue of consumers of beef. A lot of ranchers are more comfortable just raising the cattle. That's what they know. They don't want the stress of having to do it. They don't want the stress of managing inventory because it is really, really hard to keep it all in balance, to keep your ground beef. You know, most people don't realize, anybody know how many ribeyes, if I cut them 1 inch, how many do you get off one cow? Anybody have an idea? 16? You don't count, Jason. You already know. Anybody else? If I cut them 1 inch, you're going to get around 23 to 24. So for that, I got to get rid of 200 pounds of ground beef. 250 pounds of ground beef. Depends how you cut the cow. And seasonally, roasts are kind of like this, right? So the inventory management is a huge part of it. Then the overhead costs associated with cold storage, that's a huge, huge expense. It's not just as simple as you can buy one freezer. I have a reefer unit, I have 4 freezers, 3 commercial fridges. It is a lot of initial input costs, and I think that worries people. And so because of that, a lot of ranchers don't want to get involved going direct to consumer, or they get involved and they raise these cattle and then they realize I have no consumer because they didn't try to get that consumer prior to starting. But it's kind of hard to go sell someone something when you don't have anything to sell. It's a hard concept to grasp. I had to take the risk, and I was willing to do it.
Could you speak to capital expenditure to build your plant?
Yeah, I'll try to make it as basic as I can. I'd let Robert even pitch in on that, but I think if a person wants to go and start a plant in Central Texas, you can go ahead and add that probably another 10%, 15% cost on top of what the normal is. Figure $300 per square foot. I think that's a good starting point. So if you build a 5,000 square foot plant, right off the bat, $1.5 million. It is the equipment piece and really the cold storage piece is where it gets the most expensive. And that side, from when we started 18 months ago planning, went up another 30%, 35%, pretty close. So that is a huge, huge cost in the process. Yes, sir.
Are you putting dry aging facilities in the plant?
Yes. Yeah, so we're still working on designing how we're going to put our dry age room in. We've left room to do all those. We're going to mainly look at dry aging primals. New York or strip loins, ribeye rolls. Some people like T-bones, but inevitably, what as a rancher I want to do is cut the beef as quick as I can so there's less shrinkage, and age the cuts that are your money cuts. And so, yes, sir. We will have the ability to age, probably looking to do somewhere around 30 to 60 days, depending on what the customer wants. But we have enough room for you to age a carcass and hang 14, 21, up to 30 days. Yes, sir.
What's your general plan to survive the inflation of this decade?
General plan to survive inflation. That's a good question. I use Bitcoin. You know, we're gonna hold our costs as strong as we can. I think more importantly is making sure we get creative on on our input cost and how we direct our output with our beef product. That's going to be a challenge with shipping. Yes, sir.
From a regulation perspective, is there something that stands out that seems like there's a lot of burden or not a lot of safety to the consumer?
I can tell you this. I've been in enough local processing plants I chose to go fed and go USDA for a couple reasons. One, if I want to sell beef, I can ship it to any state that I want to as a state plant. But I can't sell to anyone that retails my meat. Like if I wanted to ship some to New York and then they wanted to sell it, it's got to be a fed plant. With fed, they're very, very stringent on their protocols. I feel safe. I know I feel extremely safe with our plant, but most all the plants that I've used, for the most part, I feel really safe with their protocols, even as a consumer. Yes, sir.
So I saw on Twitter, of course, something about like a live kill and then harvest on site as a value add. And I don't know if that was for bison or beef, but it seems like that might be an option for smaller producers. I don't know.
It is. It is. The only problem, like the mobile processing is great. For those that just have a couple cows and you want someone to come out and do it, absolutely. From a beef consumer standpoint, it's a challenge because you don't get to age it. And so your steaks are going to be tougher. Your ground beef will be fresh. That aging makes a huge difference in the taste profile. So you you can have really good beef, but if I took that same, they need to hang a minimum of 3 days, in my opinion, to even start getting the profile that you want, because your steaks are going to be tough. I hate to say it, but they are. Yes, ma'am.
We have a ranch in South Texas. It's about 45 miles from the border, down 35, and we've been taking it to market, for 100 years now, 150 years in the family. Everybody does it that way. How do you see trying to get into what you're doing? We're so far away. As far as I knew, we couldn't even process or sell our beef. We had to take it to market.
Sure.
This is all kind of new. So, for one, would your plant be feasible?
Yes.
The distance?
Well, I can tell you, my plant would be feasible, or would be available. Feasible, probably not. So what we're trying to do through the Beef Initiative is to work with Robert as well and get plants all across the state and get more of these open and get more folks either co-oping or get more investors coming in and trying to open these local plants up, because it is a challenge. That's why I built ours. The closest plant to my ranch, or to our home base ranch, is 78 miles from me. So that was even a challenge for me, having to send employees to go pick up nonstop. We want to be able to get in each region at least one plant put within a 70, 80 mile radius of everywhere. That would be our goal. Offsetting your question, it's going to be tough. Get with me after, and maybe I can help refer some of the other processors I know kind of in that area. He knows a lot more than I do. Robert Messer, he can help you a ton. Yes.
I get a call probably every week from a producer that says, I have an architect, I designed a plant. It's been a year now. He doesn't know what he's doing. And all I ask is, how many USDA plants has he designed and built? And what I see right now across the state of Texas is the farmers are looking to try to figure out how to solve this problem. There are a lot of, just because we're a small group here, but there are a lot of people struggling with this problem. And if a few ranchers could get together in a region, you could build a plant and produce your own meat. But I'm seeing a lot of people, I'm getting lots of calls, and we're here to help them figure out how to build a plant. It's not rocket scientists. I mean, a trained monkey, even like me, can do it if you have been doing this for 50 years. Okay, so we're here to help you guys figure out how to do this. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Would y'all consider open sourcing your plant?
What do you mean?
Designs?
Yeah, he'd be, once again, kind of the guy to talk to. He helped us. Yes, sir. Yes, they have to have, if you're in the state of Texas, you can actually use the state facility. You can choose. You either have to have state or USDA to go direct to restaurants. Yes, sir.
Do you guys have any financing partners?
Well, fortunately, I'm I'm gonna let Slim kind of take some of those answers on that. I had my own already in place, so a little different, but yes, sir. Any more? Yes, sir.
Custom graves,
Yes, sir.
in your opinion, how many ranchers would want somebody who was good pasture management to reach out to them and say, I want to put my cattle on your land?
You know, what's hard is traditionally ranchers aren't very open to that at first. No different than they're not open to changing from conventional.
Let's say about new people.
Sure.
People that want to get in, not 100-year-old ranchers.
Right.
Like the guy that's like, I want to do this. I want to manage animals.
Right.
Ain't got no land. And then we have this gentleman back here from Athens saying, I got land.
Right.
Now, so now it's a decentralized network of,
Yes.
can we figure out who's got cattle, who got land, who doesn't suck at pasture management, and put that cow on that land, and then at one point or another, somehow analyze a situation where's a heat map, where do you put the processing plant?
And that's exactly what we are trying to get started. He was asking, like, how do we network and combine all this together where there's vacant land, where there's new producers, because the average age right now is, I think it's 58 and a half. It changed a little bit. 68 and a half that are ranchers. So, our whole industry is shifting. They're getting older. They're retiring. They're selling their land to developers. Why not? Why put in all this work for no money? How do we start networking it? You're exactly right. That's what the Beef Initiative also hopefully will bring together, is to open those doors.
You opened up a door on that one. I've been listening a lot to a gentleman by the name of John Kemp. Have you ever heard of him?
Yes, sir.
He's been talking about succession planning for a long time.
Sure.
And every single time he brings it up, he almost cries. Because he's watching whole families lose their land because nobody wants to get into it. They
Yep.
can't give it to their kids, their kids don't want it, but they see dollar signs on development. That they'll do, but they will not keep it in their family. You got, what was it? Slim, what's the name of that? Does he ever?
Yeah.
Yeah, Turkey Creek.
Yep.
To see, if you've seen pictures of that place, if you do the walkthrough or the fly-through, because it's what, 89,000 acres or whatever.
Right.
I showed a picture to my daughter, who's 12, and I said, this family is selling this farm, check this out, look at this video. She's like, wow. Like, how long you got, baby girl?
I know.
I mean, succession
Yeah.
planning at this point it's non-existent.
No.
To come in and gap fill that with pasture management, processing plants, and people who want to manage animals.
That's exactly why I jumped into this, because I'm one of those, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm absolutely going to do it now. And I was told that, growing up, even my dad, he shoved me to college because he's like, don't go into cattle. Don't go into ag. You can't make any money. I'm hell-bent to show him there's a way. And you're exactly right. I know my time's up, so I'm going to do one thing. Everyone stand up. All right. I want you to turn to the person, for those who are on the outside aisles, you're screwed on this one. Turn to the person on your right. Introduce yourself. All right. So now that everyone got to meet the person to the right, I want you to, yeah, you're right. Now also turn around, do it to the person on your left. Introduce yourself real quick. All right, now that we got to meet the person on our right and we got to meet the person on our left, how many people here have no clue of the Beef Initiative? You heard us on a podcast. How many of y'all just saw us on the internet? How many of y'all care about our environment? How many of y'all aren't so interested in that, you just want to be a producer? How many want to be a consumer? I'm asking a bunch of loaded questions. So how many of y'all, at the end of the day, just want to come eat good food and come see Kerrville, Texas? Well, that was me. Excellent. So my point is, none of y'all really know me on a personal basis. I was able to get over 120 people here to stand up, introduce themselves to the person to the left, person to the right, and every one of you followed exactly what I asked you to do. My point is, if I can get you to do that, who says you can't do it in your communities and make that same impact? That is my challenge as you leave today. Do the exact same thing. Thank you.